play as time goes by.
You must remember this. A kiss is just a kiss. A sigh is just.
This is one of the most famous songs in cinema history, in one of the greatest films of all time. 8 nominations, 3 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. An instant classic.
Sam, I thought I told you never to play.
However, it is truly surprising that this is the case. Let's take this iconic scene as an example. If we try to break it down, we discover a lot of unexpected details. Dolly Wilson couldn't play the piano, so the crew had to place a real pianist behind the scenes. Humphrey Bogart was unhappy with the production and practically did not communicate with his colleagues. Ingrid Bergman did not know how to play her role. As a matter of fact, the director and screenwriters of the movie themselves did not yet know how it would end. How did a movie with such troubles become a universal classic and not lose its relevance even more than 80 years later? We cannot tell the story of Casablanca without the history behind it. It has its origins in the period we know today as the interwar period. After the end of the First World War, the whole world was seeking peace. It seems that after such an unprecedented conflict, with all its horrors, countries would never dare to do such a thing. But already in the mid-30s, the international order began to collapse rapidly. One of the main events was the rise to power of the Nazis in Germany, who did not consider the provisions of the Versailles Treaty and began to pursue a very aggressive foreign policy. In these circumstances, in 1938, American screenwriter Murray Burnett and his wife traveled to Europe. They were in Vienna when the Anschluss occurred and also visited Belgium, France and Britain. The couple was deeply affected by the events they saw. Once in a small French town on the Mediterranean coast, they visited La Belle Aurore Café, which became the basis for the famous Rick's Café. Burnett had an idea for a play that would capture the atmosphere of the place and the impending disaster. Returning to New York, he began working on the script with John Allison. By the summer of 1940, the play was ready. It was called Everybody Comes to Rick's. By this time, the war was already in full swing in Europe. However, the play was not staged. According to the literary scholar and playwriting expert Mark Axelrod, the play was pretentious nonsense. The authors were asked to rewrite it, but their agent decided to offer the play to Hollywood studios. Warner Brothers were the only studio to make an offer. They ended up buying the rights in January 1942, just a month after the attack on Pearl Harbor, which brought the US into World War II. As Irene Lee Diamond, the studio's script editor, later said, "Once a year I was sent to New York to see if there was a suitable play among the novelties. There I came across a play by Murray Burnett and John Allison that had never been produced by anyone." Diamond presented the play to producer Hal B. Wallis, after which the studio decided to make it into a movie. However, the script required considerable revision. The studio hired 3 writers, Julius Epstein, his brother Philip, and Howard Koch, to write the screenplay. Time was short given that the Epstein brothers had left to work on Frank Capra Why We Fight series early in 1942, but at the time movie production was a fast-paced process. Hollywood produced about 100 films that year, so work was on a tight schedule. The studio also wanted to hire William Wheeler as the director of the picture, but he refused the offer due to the scheduling conflicts. In these circumstances, Michael Curtiz was chosen for the job. He was born into a Jewish family in Budapest, Hungary, and migrated to the United States in 1926. He almost quit the movie early on, after language and accent differences made for a difficult working environment for everyone involved. His Hungarian accent provoked much confusion amongst the crew. Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, and Paul Heinrich were chosen for the leading roles. Principal photography began on the 25th of May 1942, ending on the 3rd of August. By the beginning of filming, This script was still not completely ready, therefore filming was conducted in a very chaotic manner. The Epstein brothers scribbled last-minute dialogue on set, handing scraps of paper to assistants who scurried them to the actors seconds before the cameras rolled. Memorable lines like
Here's looking at you, kid.
were improvised. Here is Ingrid Bergman's recollection of the filming process.
When we did it, we had no faith in it at all because the script was so bad. And it was written day by day. There was nothing clear about it. And we didn't know where we were going. And I didn't know which man I was supposed to really love. So they say, can't you do the love scenes just a little in between? Don't put too much seriousness in it because we really don't know with which man you're going to end up. And I said, but how am I going to do that? And they said, well, play it cool.
Let's move on to the movie itself. Casablanca begins with the Marseillaise. An important symbol that runs through the entire movie, but more on that later. We see newsreel footage on streams of refugees fleeing from German-occupied France to Casablanca to reach Portugal and sail to America. As Umberto Eco wrote, Casablanca represents the magic door to the promised land. However, many people are stuck in Casablanca and are in anxious anticipation. The plight of the people is told through a comedic character, a thief.
Unfortunately, along with these unhappy refugees, the scum of Europe has gravitated to Casablanca. Some of them have been waiting years for a visa. I beg of you, monsieur, watch yourself. Be on guard. This place is full of vultures, vultures everywhere. Everywhere.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. Au revoir, monsieur. Au revoir, madame.
Au revoir. Amusing little fellow. Waiter.
Is this historically correct? Absolutely. Large streams of refugees have sought to get to the United States. One of the most famous but sad stories about this path is that of the philosopher Walter Benjamin, who was a German Jew. After the occupation of France in 1940, he was about to leave through Spain for the United States, having already evacuated most of his archives there. But at the Spanish border at Portbou, he was told that those without a visa must be returned to France. Benjamin was allowed to spend the night at the local hotel, where he committed suicide by morphine poisoning. The next day, impressed by the tragedy, the Spaniards let the whole group through, and a few days later they lifted the restrictions altogether. This allowed Hannah Arendt, who has been greatly influenced by Benjamin's ideas, to cross the Spanish border and reach the United States. But let's go back to the movie. During this period, France is a fragmented state. Part of it was occupied by the Germans. The other part of the territory was not occupied, where the Vichy government, led by one of the top generals of World War I, Philippe Pétain, holds power. The legal status of this free part is very vague, which is well shown in the movie. There are essentially two governments, Free France under de Gaulle and Vichy under Pétain. We see Police Prefect Renaud trying to maneuver between the two sides and keep neutral.
Louis, are you pro-Vichy or free French?
Serves me right for asking a direct question. The subject is closed.
And there is another France, somewhat mythologized and idealized, the France of the Revolution, to which we occasionally see references. In the beginning of the movie, the Germans arrived in Casablanca.
May I present Captain Renaud, Police Prefect of Casablanca, Major Strasser.
Unoccupied France welcomes you to Casablanca.
Thank you, Captain. It's very good to be here.
You may find the climate of Casablanca a trifle warm, Major.
Oh, we Germans must get used to all climates, from Russia to the Sahara. But perhaps you were not referring to the weather.
What else, my dear Major?
By the way, the murder of the couriers, what has been done?
Well, realizing the importance of the case, my men are rounding up twice the usual number of suspects.
You know already who the murderer is.
Good. Is he in custody?
Oh, there's no hurry. Tonight he'll be at Rick's. Everybody comes to Rick's.
Everybody Comes to Rick's is a reference to the original title of the play. This is how we learn about the main character. Initially, Rick is presented to us as a cynical American who adheres to a policy of isolationism, ignores what is going on around him, goes about his business and doesn't take sides.
I
I'd stick my neck out for nobody.
A wise foreign policy.
It's an allusion to the policies the US has followed since the early 19th century and President Monroe's doctrine. It is important to remind that the movie tells the story of 1941, before Pearl Harbor and the US entry into World War II. One of the more interesting readings of the movie connects Bogart's character to USA and personally Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
My dear Rick, when will you realize that in this world today, isolationism is no longer a practical policy?
An interesting theory is further empowered by the very meaning of Casablanca, which is Spanish for White House. Gradually, the protagonist is revealed as a man sympathetic to refugees and an anti-fascist.
My friends in the underground tell me that you've quite a record. You ran guns to Ethiopia. You fought against the fascists in Spain.
Rick has a Hemingway-esque charm that is revealed as the movie progresses. For example, one of the storylines in the movie is a Bulgarian couple trying to get a visa.
Perhaps tomorrow we'll be on the plane.
Rick essentially helps them find the money to do so by letting them win at roulette. The main plot of the movie revolves around the transit letters that allow to leave Casablanca. In the beginning, we hear the story of two German couriers who were carrying these letters and were killed. However, there is a common misunderstanding about the origin of these letters. In this scene, Ugarte, a man who is in the business of selling exit visas to refugees, says,
Look, Rick, you know what this is? Something that even you have never seen. Letters of transit signed by General Weygand.
Many people have heard General de Gaulle, and this mistake is also present in many of the subtitles. However, it would be strange that German couriers were carrying visas that were signed by the head of Free France, and furthermore that German authorities would recognize these letters as valid. In fact, Ugarte said,
Letters of transit signed by General Weygand.
At this time, General Maxime Weygand was the delegate general for French North Africa for the Vichy regime, exactly the right authority who would be signing such a document in that place and time. And we can find his name in the original text of the play Everybody Comes to Rick's. The letters of transit themselves are reminiscent of the diplomatic immunity that allowed diplomats a safe passage home when war breaks out between their country and the country they were serving in. Viktor Laszlo, leader of the anti-fascist resistance, who arrives in Casablanca with a mysterious companion, is interested in these very letters. They appeared at Rick's cafe after Ugarte's arrest.
Yes, monsieur.
I reserve the table. Viktor Laszlo.
Yes, monsieur Laszlo.
The character, Viktor Laszlo, is based on a real person, Czech resistance leader Jan Smudek. Like the hero of the movie, Smudek was wanted by Gestapo, but he was managed to escape from the Czech Republic, crossing the border into Slovakia and then through Hungary into friendly Yugoslavia, and then on through Lebanon in the Middle East to France, where he joined the Czechoslovaks fighting on the side of France. He was injured and fell into Nazi captivity. Although his true identity was unknown, Smudek managed to escape again, and it was during this time that the Czech resistance fighter stayed for a while in Casablanca. From there, Smudek traveled through Martinique, the Bermudas and Canada to eventually reach Britain, where he enrolled into the Royal Air Force and fought on. Another character, Ilsa, turns out to know Rick, but initially we don't know from where. This is where the famous scene we talked about at the beginning takes place. Gradually, the details of Rick and Ilsa's relationship are revealed to us. The couple met in Paris, but the German offensive forced them to flee. At this point, their connection was interrupted. Ilsa did not arrive at the train station, but sent Rick a note. From that point on, we see a love triangle playing out in the dramatic conditions of war. Viktor and Ilsa need visas to leave Casablanca, so Viktor can continue his activities, At a certain point, they learned that the only way out for them will be the transit letters that Rick has in his possession.
Have you heard about Signor Gatti and the letters of transit?
Yes, something.
Those letters were not found on Gatti when they arrested him.
You know where they are?
Not for sure, monsieur. But I'll venture to guess that Gatti left those letters with Monsieur Rick.
Rick.
The authors collide feelings with a sense of duty. There is a number of fictions and historical bloopers in Casablanca. The most obvious one occurs in the conversation between Renault and Major Strasser.
You give him credit for too much cleverness. My impression was that he's just another blundering American.
We mustn't underestimate American blundering. I was with them when they blundered into Berlin in 1918.
Of course, the Americans didn't enter Berlin. Moreover, Germany ended World War I on enemy territory in France. Let's move on to the scene we promised to talk about at the beginning. Germans sing the song The Watch on the Rhine, which is an unofficial anthem of the Franco-Prussian War, in which France lost, and after which Germany unified and began to pursue an aggressive imperial foreign policy. Victor Laszlo responds by asking the band to play the Marseillaise,
Play La Marseillaise. Play it.
a song of revolution, resistance and freedom.
Le jour de gloire est arrivé, contre nous de la tyrannie, l'étendard sanglant élevé, l'étendard sanglant élevé. Entendez-vous dans les campagnes mugir ces...
An interesting detail that the most of the people involved in the movie were refugees from Europe. So this was an emotional moment for them, and that can be felt through the screen. This song builds up the tension.
You see what I mean? If Laszlo's presence in a cafe can inspire this unfortunate demonstration, what more will his presence in Casablanca bring on? I advise that this place be shut up at once.
The filmmakers masterfully switch gears by alternating the scene with Rick
How can he close me up? On what ground? I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
You're winning, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Everybody out at once.
and then the scene with Elsa.
Mademoiselle, after this disturbance, it is not safe for Laszlo to stay in Casablanca.
This morning you implied it was not safe for him to leave Casablanca.
That is also true, except for one destination, to return to occupied France.
Occupied France?
Under safe conduct from me.
What value is that? You may recall what German guarantees have been worth in the past.
The German guarantees are a reference to the policy of appeasement that the European powers were pursuing towards Hitler in the 1930s.
We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.
Viktor and Elsa return to the hotel, and then Viktor goes to an underground meeting and Elsa goes back to Rick's. Elsa and Rick's meeting takes an unexpected turn.
Go ahead and shoot. You'll be doing me a favor.
Richard, I tried to stay away. I thought I would never see you again. That you are out of my life.
A great debate surrounded this scene.
The day you left Paris, if you knew what I went through, if you knew how much I loved you, how much I still love you.
What really happened between the characters and why this scene was interrupted and then continued again? This could be due to the existence of Hollywood censorship in these years known as the Hays Code. In the end, many characters shed their masks and make a choice.
Oh, you're surprised about my friend Ricky. The explanation is quite simple. Love, it seems, has triumphed over virtue.
Not so fast, Louis.
The first to do so is Rick. He openly engages in conflict.
Put that phone down. Get me the radio tower. Put it down.
Then Renault make his choice.
Major Strasser has been shot. Round up the usual suspects.
They both come to realize that this is their fight too.
Well, Rick, you're not only a sentimentalist, but you've become a patriot.
Maybe, but it seemed like a good time to start.
I think perhaps you're right.
The story ends with a line that was not in a script.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
It was added only during the editing process. Casablanca went on to win 3 Academy Awards for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay. The movie is included in all possible ratings and top 100 lists in the history of cinema, a result that the filmmakers could not have dreamed of. So why did this movie, with all the problems we talked about, become a cult movie? Sven Mikulec believes that the main reason why Casablanca still holds a place in film theory books, pop culture and oral tradition lies in its powerful storyline that easily gets through to people, featuring characteristics easy to relate to, dealing with a theme that has for centuries been the artist's inspiration for creating the best of stories, love and sacrifices we make for a greater cause. Set in the backdrop of the Second World War, evoking the notion of honor, loyalty, friendship and duty, Casablanca is a classic which represents the very best of the old Hollywood had to offer. And it's no surprise the film managed to stay afloat and still be celebrated 3/4 of a century since the premiere. Umberto Eco goes further and argues that Casablanca is not one movie, but the movies, and that is what makes it so appealing. You could say it was filmed as a TV series or an anthology. There are indeed a lot of little plots and genres that cleverly intertwine with each other to form a whole panorama of archetypes. Casablanca has melodrama, noir, war movie and even documentary elements. Nobody would have been able to achieve such a cosmic result intentionally. Nature has spoken here in place of man. If nothing else, this is a phenomenon worthy of veneration. Finally, Casablanca is probably the best love story in the history of cinema, because it shows the injustice of the world and the love of two people that is sacrificed for victory.
Ilsa, I'm no good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of 3 little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. Someday you'll understand that. Now. He's looking at you, kid.
At the very end, we hear again the Marseillaise, which symbolizes the fight for the right values, for freedom. If you want to learn about the causes of the events of the 20th century, you should watch this video.
Always welcome lovers as time